everything that could have went wrong for Kansas City minus injuries basically did. But if I'm Kansas City, this feels to me like a little bit of a wake-up call. And not in the same form or fashion that was talking about Pittsburgh. That's an identity change. Kansas City does not need an identity change. They've got the best quarterback in the world, the best coach in the world, the best tight end in the world, and probably the best interior defensive lineman in the world. Not to mention some tremendous young players, mostly on the defensive side of the ball. I think this organization is taking Patrick Mahomes for granted because they kind of did last year, but even more so this season. Where last year, they trade Tyreek Hill. They get a bunch of picks for it. I think the deal worked for both sides, but obviously Tyreek Hill is one of the 10 best football players on earth, and he's got 1,000 yards through 8 games for Miami, so obviously the Dolphins are feeling good about that trade. But Kansas City got a bunch of picks, and considering how well they draft, Brett Veach, general manager in particular, considering how well they draft, they should be in a good shape moving forward, given all those draft picks. That said, last year, Kelsey's obviously Mahomes' number one target, as he is this year, really every year of his career. But their number one receiver is Juju Smith-Schuster. Have you heard a peep from Juju Smith-Schuster in New England? In his defense, Mac Jones is his quarterback, but still, there's a reason Juju was available for Kansas City to take. Who's the number one? Kadarius Toney? Sky Moore? It's not Mecole Hardman. Rashee Rice. I think Rashee Rice has good potential. I'm not selling my stock on the kid yet, but I really like Rashee Rice. But he's not a number one today. If I'm the Kansas City Chiefs, I pick up the phone and I call the team that won the Super Bowl 2 years ago, the Los Angeles Rams, and give up some of those picks for Cooper Kupp. That's what I would do. Because the Rams are in the midst, in all likelihood, of a fire sale right now. They're going to be moving a lot of guys. I think Aaron Donald, there's a chance Aaron Donald gets moved. I don't think Stafford does, but it is moved, but never say never. I think Cooper Kupp would be first on the Rams list of guys to go, where it's like, okay, he's probably on the very end of his prime. Obviously, he had the best season any receiver's ever had 2 years ago. You know, we're in a better shape getting picks for Cooper Kupp than just retaining him and then watching his body break down for the next 3 years. Let's see if we can get something for him. And if you're Kansas City, you know what Patrick Mahomes needs? If they bracket Travis Kelce, if they stop Travis Kelce, I need a guy who can consistently get open and who has reliable hands, which we saw yesterday and all season long. Sky Moore is simply not that. And I like Sky Moore. I liked him out of the draft 2 years ago. Hasn't panned out thus far. Is it nuts to say go out and get Cooper Kupp? I don't think the Buccaneers will give you Mike Evans. I simply don't. I think Tampa Bay is going to try to make the most out of this season, try to win the NFC South, and then extend Mike Evans. I know they weren't able to come to an agreement before the start of the season, which is when Evans set his deadline. Maybe they get Mike Evans. If they do, their offense goes to a new level. But if you look at the team that they're trying to compete with in the AFC, and again, Kansas City, if you believe the Chiefs are the leader in the AFC clubhouse, I don't judge you for that. I understand. But Jacksonville's got weapons, and so does Baltimore, and so does Miami, and so does Cincinnati. These teams that Kansas City needs to genuinely worry about in the AFC. I mean, again, I just got done bashing Pittsburgh. There's some problems in Pittsburgh. George Pickens is not one of them. Not saying they're going to go after George Pickens. The Steelers would never trade him. But I think the Steelers have better receivers than the Chiefs. I mean, the only one of the few teams, I mean, Dallas has a better receiving core than Kansas City. Philadelphia has a way better receiving core than Kansas City, as does San Francisco, that you do need guys who can consistently win over the top. Yes, Patrick Mahomes' performance against the Bengals last year in the AFC title game and against the Eagles in the Super Bowl were breathtaking, were unbelievable. Elevated him, in my view, given that postseason, given his resume thus far, elevated Patrick Mahomes, in my view, as the fourth greatest quarterback of all time, on route to potentially, not saying it's going to happen because I think that's a long climb, but maybe catch Tom Brady. Only guys that take him Mahomes all time, Brady, Montana, Manning. Peyton Manning, that is. Obviously, I wouldn't take Eli Manning over Mahomes. Eli was good, not Mahomes. But Mahomes at 4. But that doesn't mean if I'm Kansas City that I necessarily want him to have to carry my offense every single game. Can he? Better than anybody in football as far as I'm concerned. But that's eventually going to catch up to you in that, again, we saw defensive coordinators. We saw Cincinnati hold Travis Kelce in check at times in that game, and Patrick Mahomes was having to rely on guys who were special teams guys to catch passes for him. It's not that bad this year, but it's not far off. And so if you're Kansas City, I said Dallas needs to consider calling somebody about a wide receiver. Kansas City, to me, even more so. They've got the best quarterback in the world, and they've got the best tight end in the world, and the best coach in the world. But these other teams have better weapons. And again, Mahomes is the best quarterback in the world. Burrow's no slouch. Neither is Lawrence. Neither is Lamar. And frankly, Tua is playing well this season. You don't think those weapons they've got help? I mean, I've seen three of those guys, Lawrence, Burrow, and Lamar, carry their offenses with no true number one or bad circumstances. Now, I haven't seen Tua do that. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. We'll see. But it wouldn't hurt Kansas City to be aggressive and go after a guy. And if they don't, they run the risk of maybe being a little bit of exposed offensively in terms of they just have a bare cupboard outside of Travis Kelce. Again, this loss, I'm not going to overreact to say, oh, Kansas City's in trouble. Mahomes was really sick. It was really cold. The Chiefs really didn't take the Broncos seriously. Of course, the Broncos took the Chiefs seriously. It's their defending champs, division rival. They haven't beaten them in 8 years. Of course, they were taking them seriously. I'm not going to overreact to this one loss. But in terms of what the Chiefs need, they need a guy. They need a guy who could separate consistently, which they haven't had. A receiver who could separate consistently, which they have not had, simply put, since Tyreek Hill. I'm telling you, I'd call the Rams today and say, what do you want for Cooper Kupp? That's what I would do. If they do that, they're right back in business. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.